Welcome to the Move with Momentum podcast. I'm subbing in for Bruce Breedlove this week as he is out. And I have today the great pleasure to introduce my wife, Brittany Brooks, the owner and co-founder of Momentum Realty, which is a rocket ship of a company that has exploded with growth over the last 16 months from 4 agents right before the shutdown to 115 agents on track to sell $500 million here in Northeast Florida. And the company is also in 6 different cities. So Brittany, without further ado, welcome to the Move with Momentum podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on the official podcast.
Yeah, well, welcome. So we're going to have a big picture conversation today. We're going to be talking about technology. We're going to be talking about why all these companies are going public and what that means for the agents who are receiving those shares. And then what makes a quality agent and what is the differentiator and value of different brokerages across the board from our view, right? So this is to start a conversation. We hope you join us in it and we can collaborate together and share perspectives based on our backgrounds. So Brittany, talk to us about what you see happening on the technology side and share your opinions there.
Yeah, so it's twofold, the conversations we've been having the past week, which is why we wanted to jump on and just have a conversation and have our little nuggets go out into the universe and see what happens. So the first is what we're noticing is a lot of companies, and this has been for the past few years, right? They're harping on, join me, my technology is the best. And we hear from other agents that join Momentum, well, what technology do you have? And the first thing we do is stop them and say, okay, why does that matter to you? Right? What is the importance of the technology in your business? And we noticed over the past week that there have been some acquisitions going on with a few of the big players. And what they're harping on is like, our technology is the best. And I'm sitting there going, okay, that's great. Your technology is the best. But what about your agents? And what about the service they're providing? So it just seems to be a bunch of flashy objects distracting away from the foundations of real estate and what makes a good agent. And yes, a good agent can be tech enabled to make their lives easier, but does the end result and the customers see that as a benefit? And so it just seems to be distracting and confusing. And I just want to kind of bring to light, like, does this matter? Does this not matter? A good agent was going to be a good agent whether or not technology was at play or not. And maybe I'm wrong. It just seems to be muddling.
Yeah, I haven't met one agent that was an average agent and then you give them a tool and now they're above average agent.
So, okay, I hate to say this, but I shouldn't be afraid to say my accolades. We, Jon, before you moved out of the sales business, we've helped around 500 buyers and sellers. And in our career in real estate so far. And I operated off of, I'm not very tech savvy. I operated with an iPhone 7 for the past however many years with a cracked screen, not going on YouTube. I don't know. Everybody has their strengths and how they want to play, but I am not very tech savvy. My roommate, calling out Ruby, will laugh at me every time I'm like, how do you use this app? And how do you use this program? And I have no idea what to do because it came down to the foundations. So how are we able to sell that much real estate and help that many families? And I'm not very tech savvy. So how far does it take you? That's the question I want to ask the universe is how far and how impactful is the technology in your business that it makes a substantial difference?
Yeah. And so a lot of these brokerages now are claiming themselves to be not brokerage companies, but real estate transaction technology companies. And what does that have to do with the agent producing more units? Yes, it might make the facilitation of the transaction simpler, but does that cause the agent to actually go out there and produce more units, which is where the value is at? I have not met somebody.
I was just thinking the technology isn't going to lead generate for you. And maybe it does, right? It still comes down to you have to lead generate.
Well, when I talk to these big tech companies, they say we have an internal CRM. Wonderful. You can buy a Follow Up Boss for $450 a year, or, Boomtown, whatever. And by the way, you're paying fees to that brokerage anyway. That's going to cost the same amount for the CRM. Now they just have, clause in you so make it harder for you to get out. So the technology conversation is a really interesting one, because I don't think the agent knows what that means when they ask that question, or what is the purpose of the technology that you're looking to do. Technology, they should just replace that with tool, because I think technology makes it sound sexy and it's the next thing in the future. Like, what am I
missing out on? Like, oh, I don't have that. I must be missing out on something that's going to propel my business.
Right. Yes, it might make you more efficient, and that's going to free you up to have more time. But like, agents were coming in efficient anyway, or not efficient. And just because you give them the technology doesn't mean they're going to use that tool to actually go implement it. And that was the big disconnect I had with another person who's CEO of a company, and trying to understand, do you understand that you can hand the perfect piece of technology to like 100 people in a room and probably only 3 people would use it? Or, set up the system and actually implement it. So technology is great for what it can do, but it's not going to make the difference between the different companies. And we can actually prove that, because when we did our analysis on all the different companies in Northeast Florida and who has the most productive agents, the range was just about the same for every single real estate agent, regardless of brand, regardless of technology. So what is the differentiator between the agent? Because Brittany, we just had this conversation. You can take a top agent from any company right now and plop them into any company, and they'll still be a top agent in any company. It's just like the same idea. If you if you win the lottery and you become, you get $1 million, you better become a millionaire to hold on to that $1 million. It's who you are becoming. It's not the technology. It's not, and this will be our second conversation, the stock that's issued to you that's going to make you, in this crazy world, you have to get in first in that world to be able to actually build wealth, on the ground floor of these companies. Because here's what's going to happen, Britt. We're going to switch over to the IPO conversation. Britt, why are all these? Why are all these?
We're not done. Hold on. Right. We're not done.
Then tell me. Talk to me.
We're not done. Wait, we were going to like what actually makes an agent successful.
What actually makes an agent successful, Brittany?
Okay. I was thinking through this, and at the end of the day, have you, and this is my perspective, right? Everybody might have different perspectives. At the end of the day, have you added value in some way, shape, or form to that customer, buyer, or seller, so that their experience changed because you were a part of it? Like, was there a value add? You don't get reviews because someone's like, oh, I liked them. Oh, I liked the app that they sent me. Did they feel a difference in their experience from working with you versus working with someone else? And the value add. That's what I got. That's how I think of it.
Yeah. I mean, the value add is the way you make them feel, being super responsive, being super knowledgeable, being trustworthy, that they feel that they have an expert guide along the way. And technology can't do that. Right now, there's no capability at any of the companies that say they're a technology company that can replace that.
So let's think from the opposite perspective, just to play devil's advocate. I could see a world, and it's still a small part, where someone who does not want the relationship, they don't care about the experience, and they're like, they sent me their app, whatever it may be. And we've seen this from the lending side, where you just go through the app really quick and it's a seamless experience, but maybe that's what the person valued. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want a relationship. They didn't want to be with a consulting or a consultant. And they just really honestly wanted it to be hands off and just put some things in an app. But at the same time, the app can only take you so far. So
I don't believe that's what the consumer wants, Britt. It's one of your largest purchases. It only happens about every 8 years.
They're scared.
It's highly emotional. Yeah. And the inventory changes, and the difference between you having a top agent and an agent who just started is so tremendously different in your experience level that you're going to have right now, regardless of whether that new agent has the technology or not. Okay. Like giving the technology to that new agent is not going to have them beat out the experienced agent that's been in that area. It's just never going to happen. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
It's
so what is the level
experience.
Of, yeah. So what is that definition of the value add that each person wants? That comes down to the consultation and how they want to be communicated with. What are they missing in their experience? What do they want out of this? And that's where the personal relationship matters as the real estate consultant to see how you add value, whatever definition that is to the customer.
Yeah. No one's ever come to me and be like, I want to buy the whole house through an app. I haven't had that happen to me where like, no, I don't want to work with you. I like have this really cool app over here that I just want to do the whole transaction with. I don't want to try. I believe everything. I know everything myself. I don't want all the hand holding through, I don't want the sounding board to go through things.
Well, and then that lends itself into a whole conversation around iBuyer situations, open door. I couldn't even get into a house the other day. So yes, that's a whole nother podcast day.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is what technology does is for repeatable processes, it can help automate repeatable processes.
Yeah.
But each situation in real estate is so hyper unique. Each neighborhood, each lot, every house has a different age of all the different things inside of it. It's so unique. It's going to take a long time to automate that experience, and it's not going to be happening anytime soon. And again, even if you got that automation and you gave it to one person versus another, the person who's still the expert that people have been in the area for a long time is still going to win out.
So let me then challenge you. Is the real estate experience in each house unique, or is the human and each human unique? And that's what lends itself. Yeah.
It's both.
Well, you can create a model, which is how we became efficient in the volume that we've sold in our history, to say like, okay, black and white, a house is this, this, and this. And then it lends itself into this, this, and this. And then throughout the transaction process, you either go here, you go here in its path, right? What throws it all off is not the black and white of like, here's the data and the facts about the house. So therefore we go to path A, path B, path C. Hear me out. It's when you're in path A and the buyer says, whew, the emotions are taking over. Holy cow. I don't know what I want to do. What if I have a different risk tolerance and now I want to deal with this? I don't want to deal with this. Where do we go from here? And then you're having to combat those emotions. So yes, each house is unique, but the foundations in the process could be seen as pretty much the same. It's just the human that throws it overboard. And then the real estate agent has to manage the emotions. Technology can't manage your emotions.
It will be really interesting to see how these tech platforms scale, because they're saying they are technology for agents to plug in, use their business services, and transact at a fraction of the cost. Or that's one way, or they're claiming that they have a great CRM already exists. Mm-hmm. Hey, I can get you business cards. We have a suite already exists. That's Canva, right? like right. All these things, like you're like, okay, you're recreating everything that's already out there. That's already very affordable to the real estate agent. What are you actually referring to in technology that can't be replaced extremely cheaply by an Excel spreadsheet or anything else that's going on?
Yeah. It's how the unique person uses that tool to their advantage.
Yeah. Then you have to also train the agent to use that new tool, mm-hmm. which the agents don't want to do. The adoption rate is very low for the most part, or will take a very long time. So what are they talking about? This is where, and it's funny because I get on the calls with these companies, and I don't think they know what they're saying. I think this is a conversation to sell Wall Street, saying, just like Coinbase, a transaction platform for cryptocurrencies. Well, we're going to get a little fee off of every single real estate transaction. And that's what's going to make it. That's not how it works. That's not what the consumer wants. It's not like buying a virtual coin. It's not like buying a stock in your portfolio. This is buying real estate for where your family's going to live in the real world.
So then that lends the question of, you can pivot away from what the real estate agent wants to, does it ultimately matter what the consumer wants? Of course, like that's what creates the business. It's based on what the consumer wants. So what do they want, right? If we could talk about this all day based on the perspective.
I'll tell you what they want.
Yeah.
I know what they want. They want hyper responsive, customized responses that show that you care and that you have knowledge and that they trust you through the transaction and guiding them through. That's what they want. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to pay for it. They're very much willing to pay for it. That's what they want. They want expertise and they want speed and convenience. And they want somebody who feels like they feel that this person's going to fight for me.
Yeah.
I don't see technology fighting for you. Yes, it facilitates, but it's not going to fight for you to get the best deal possible. It's not going to be able to navigate through the 100 different variables that go through a real estate transaction.
Yeah. And help comfort your emotional hurdles when it's the largest transaction of your life and it's overwhelming and it can be high, the super highs of highs and the super lows of lows. And how do you navigate that? And that's just because I'm a high I, so I understand the emotional aspects of this. That's what I focus on. And yeah, so this could be a whole conversation then of, yeah, I mean, I would be very curious if someone could come to me saying, I've made a system that responds the exact same way with AI and says, oh, here's the answer to your question. And find me a buyer or a seller who has gone through that has had they can say, I've had a 5-star experience working with these black and white answers. And it got me through in an exceptional fashion. And I am so happy to have had my AI bot.
Yeah.
Someone find that.
Bot.
Someone find that for me and prove me wrong.
No, now here's something that's real is that commission compression is real. So commissions might go from 3% to 2%. And that means that the amount that brokerages charge their agents will have to reduce. There's not going to be a world in 10 years where a brokerage is going to be able to charge 20, 30, 40% commission when you're only making 2% or 1.5% instead of 3%.
Well, it all depends on how much value they're adding.
Well, that depends on the type of real estate agents that'll be around. See, the technology that can replace agents we're talking about the bottom 50% of agents, mm-hmm. which isn't saying much. It's like 4 units a year for the bottom 50%. Technology can replace them because those agents don't provide any value. They can't because they don't do enough transaction volume.
And that's the majority of our industry. So I can understand where those companies, they have a leg to stand on. They have a business to grow because they're taking over that bottom 50% that don't produce, that they can take that share.
Yeah, but these low cap tech platforms are recruiting. They're not recruiting the influencers as much. They're recruiting in the onesie twosie agents that want that cheap platform to manage their transactions. But that's not really going to have a high level of success because that's not what the market wants. The market doesn't want companies agents.
Okay. So now this is what we had this conversation last night or the night before. Now we're lending itself into the stock conversation of, with those companies not attracting the high producers, they're attracting the bottom 50% that are producing 1 or 2. They're just hanging their license. How are they making money? How are those companies valuable? And how are they winning, saying, I'm going to sell you stock. You're going to come to my company. I'm going to give you stock. Many people are going to be listening to this knowing exactly the companies we're talking about.
Yeah, and there's like 4 or 5 of them now. Yeah.
Right. So are those companies actually valuable? And how? Right?
Okay, so let's take an agent through the waterfall of the dollar that goes through one of those companies that they pay the company. Not only do they have monthly fees or annual fees, but that dollar goes from you to the brokerage. Okay. So let's say you make $1,000. It goes to the brokerage. You have a certain amount of cap. That dollar from you to them, then they say, I'm going to give you $500 back if you recruit in an agent and you do this. Why don't they just charge you less money? And you keep that extra $500 and invest it in a diversified stock portfolio, and you don't have to wait 3 years for it to vest. And you just go to a cheaper platform, right? Because all it's doing is the big Wall Street machine is taking that money that you're giving them, reissuing it back to you, which, by the way, when they reissue it back to you, they're diluting their stock. which means that the value of your stock becomes worth a lot less. So now they have to use the profit that they actually do make from you to purchase that stock, to offset the dilution of awarding you shares. And the only way they can keep up this scheme of the money rotating through is if they continually bring in more agents and make them more productive.
But then they're constantly splitting shares and diluting their shares.
Right. So why would anybody want to own the stock? And why not just join a company that's half the price of that company and just keep the money for yourself and invest it on your own and what you want versus putting all your eggs in one basket at that one stock company?
So then, okay, so let's be fully transparent, because we've been trying to figure out this puzzle, right? Why would a company go public? Let's say our company, right?
We can go public if we wanted to.
If we want to go public, let's go public, right? But how would that benefit the mission? And
okay,
obviously you're raising capital to grow, right? But then
they don't need the capital. So that's what's missing from this. You know, some of these public companies, they don't have any debt. They're setting up this so they can award agents stock in the company that vests in 3 years. It's for retention and agent attraction.
Okay.
That's what it's there for. For the people who got in first at the top and have all these trees underneath them, they get paid a fortune. They're making a lot of money. This is real money. But the people who are coming in, for example, right now, where the tree is already built out, and then you have to find other people to recruit, and you have thousands of other agents to recruit against, and you have to be kind of lucky to be the one that they put your name down on the piece of paper. It can get very complicated. And here's the problem too. Some of those companies have already dropped like 60-70% in value. And will it continue to be valuable at all if the company has to use their money to buy back the stock dilution to keep you at the company because their
value is placed on this arbitrary profit number, but that profit goes down? I mean, what
if they hold up, one thought. Okay. If the company matures and stops its growth rate, okay, think about this. If it matures and stops its growth rate, but still issues stock, it cannot be profitable. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very, very slow. So who would invest in that model there has to be when you sell the stock or you issue the stock, there has to be a buyer on the other side. If you want to sell, there has to be a buyer.
And if you want to cash out your shares, yeah, there has to be a buyer. But at what point does the buck stop and say, I'm not buying these shares anymore? There's no value here.
What's preventing from another company coming out of that company, creating the same thing, but being a little bit cheaper to reset the tree to give everybody an opportunity? We could do that. We could IPO and say, hey, we're going to have the same exact model as over there, but it's going to be $5,000 cheaper. Right? There's no patent on the Wall Street model of IPOing and giving out shares. This goes around with technology companies, every other company.
Again, it just seems like a distraction away from the foundations of what are you in the business for? What's the goal, right?
Is the goal to be a recruiter or a producer? Do you want to produce real estate or do you want to recruit real estate agents?
Yeah.
Because they're totally different businesses. And there are some companies that will pay you a lot of money if you can recruit in top talent. Usually to recruit in top talent, you need to be an influencer yourself.
Right. But majority of the time, they're not bringing in top talent. It's the foundations that they stand on are crumbling. I mean, they're not strong. It's almost like it's this mirage and this shiny object that their foundations and like the whole company is made off of. And at what point does that collapse?
Well, so I got a text this morning from an agent that we denied joining Momentum. And he said, he had a template text over to me that said, hey, you should join, this company. And here's all the reasons why you should join it. It seems like a 2-unit producer. And so how does that show the company, the quality of agents in the company?
Right.
As a two-unit producer going out there and recruiting, good for him, hustling for trying. That's wonderful. But could he be using that time to go getting another seller and another buyer and actually providing value to his community?
It depends what their goals are. What are you focusing your energy on, and what are you hoping expands because you're focusing your energy on that? And that's where you have to live with and decide with and sleep on that every night. Are you serving the buyers and sellers and you're in real estate for the right reasons? Or are you just trying to make a buck and this is the stock market you're trying to play?
Okay, right. So this brings back, like, that's such a good framing of this conversation is like, why are you here? Like, why are you getting into real estate? Is it so you can get a bunch of stock and pray that it's worth something in 3 to 5 years? Is it so you can serve customers at the highest level and build a business that also gives you lifestyle and you learn how to run a very, very successful business?
And the value of your time.
But that doesn't even have a conversation of technology. It's not like, oh, I'm getting in because the technology will make me money. And I join your company and the technology will make me money.
I think it's just a distraction.
It's so that you're saying the stock and the tech are a distraction.
I think it's a distraction away from the fundamentals. The people who are focused, the agents that are focused on the fundamentals and building their businesses the right way with the right foundations are the ones that are successful. And the ones that are having conversations with us about, oh, this company's got the best tech. This company, they're offering me stock. They weren't going to produce anyway. It wasn't going to happen for them. They're focused on the wrong things.
They're looking for the easy button that's going to make them rich. And then they get in. And by the way, if you actually look at the rotation and retention of those companies that have the stock, the rotation out in, at least in our market, right? So I can only speak to what I know. And in our market, it's like 60% of the people aren't there a year after they join, because it is literally just a story that they're telling that gets you all hyped up and makes you think you're going to be wealthy and the technology is going to do all the work for you. And then the stock is going to be there and you're going to be living this huge dream. And then they leave.
I was just thinking, I wanted to respond to those people. I'm doing it over this podcast. Listen, if that technology makes you feel better and you can sleep at night, that's great, but it's not going to pay your bills. So like, good luck. Like, it's like the placebo effect. Like, if that's making you feel like you made the best decision and someone offered you stock and tech and you're living your best life, then you go live your best life with that. And if that makes you happy, that's all fine and dandy. But that stock and that tech is probably not going to pay your mortgage payment and build a better life for you and help buy you a rental property and invest in your future, buy your groceries. Like,
the tech already exists. And instead of paying a higher split and getting it back in stock that that's eventually gets diluted, you could just save that money and put it in a retirement account or put it in a portfolio.
And let that grow.
All it is an attraction tool distraction. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I feel sorry for the agents that fell prey to it. And I'm not saying that we won't come up with some sort of IPO idea in the future, but we're looking at it very seriously. We're trying to understand why. Yeah. And is that what we want our agents to really be doing, is get away from the customer obsession and helping serve them at the highest level and instead focus them on being recruiters for other agents. I don't want them to come because they have stock or tech. I want them to come because we have such an awesome environment of highly productive, high integrity individuals that care about the consumer experience. And that's it's not a get rich scheme. It's about, how do I serve other people? And there's a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, all I can ask for agents that are watching this is, when you're having these recruiting conversations and you're getting into, into these initial conversations with other brokerages and other places, it's just having that questioning brain and saying, is this going to make a difference? What really matters here? And not falling for the typical sales pitch. And like really, really questioning what they're saying and if it matters. And then going to other people and having them challenge that thought process and saying, am I thinking about this correctly? Am I not thinking about this correctly? And having an open mind and making sure you're making the right decision for the right reasons and not being bamboozled.
I also think, yes. So that's a great word. And the agent should understand the motivation behind the company that they're talking to. Is this just a person that's talking to me to come over? Oh, it's such a wonderful company because they want me to get in, like, under my tree so I make share off of them. Or does this person truly and authentically want to help me learn what it takes to become somebody who can be a multi-million-dollar real estate agent? because what matters is who you surround yourself with and the books you read. And you do those two things and automatically the motivation will come based on the sphere that you have, and you will go out there and produce massive results. It's really hard to do that in an environment that is purely virtual and based off of, incentives for people to recruit you in that format. So I would really look authentic for the reason why are they even talking to you? What is the motivation behind that? And then how much time are they really going to spend with you after you get in the door?
Yeah. Well, and when you say incentives for who? Are you actually going to see the incentive? Is it going to make an impact in your business and your life? Or is someone else being incentivized for you making that transition?
I agree. That's pretty much it.
That's it. That's all we've got.